But even after opening these discussions, Gaddafi was clearly not willing to do what we required him to do to give up his weapons of mass destruction programs. We said, before we go any further, we want access to every one of your sites that our intelligence knows about. And Gaddafi's representative said, oh yeah, well sure, ultimately, yeah, we'll get to that. Now let's discuss when the United States is going to lift sanctions and allow oil and natural gas investments in Libya. So for months after Gaddafi approached the United Kingdom in March of last year, these discussions, which were conducted in intelligence channels, basically went nowhere until October of last year, when we interdicted the ship, the BBC China, which was carrying centrifuge tubes and rotors from where they were manufactured in Malaysia to Tripoli. We found the ship coming through the Suez Canal. We diverted it to Italy. We unloaded crates that were labeled used machinery and found highly sophisticated Iranian centrifuge equipment in it. Within a few days after the interdiction, it became apparent to Gaddafi that the centrifuge equipment was not going to go to Tripoli. And we believe that the interdiction of the BBC China convinced Gaddafi that if we knew that much about his nuclear weapons program, there was probably nothing that we didn't know. And that was the second major step in Gaddafi's decision-making to renounce weapons of mass destruction. And what he did at that point was accede to the demands that we had made to open up all of his chemical, missile, biological, and nuclear sites to inspection by the CIA and the British Secret Intelligence Service. So on two long separate trips in November and December of last year, we took our intelligence and said to the Libyan government, we want to go here, and we want to go here, and we want to go here, and we want to go here. And we saw everything that they had, confirming all of the intelligence that we had and more that we didn't know about Libya's WMD programs. But even then, even as we confirmed what we knew about Libyan programs, Gaddafi still wasn't quite ready to bring this deal to conclusion. There was still a feeling, I think, on his part that he could get away with making a deal that he might violate. Until the weekend that we captured Saddam Hussein in Iraq in December. And over that weekend, within 4 days, we had brought the negotiations to a conclusion. Now, I think that is an unmistakable record that consistent pressure by the United States and the successful use of military force convinced Gaddafi in a very cold-blooded way that he was less secure, not more secure, in pursuing weapons of mass destruction, including nuclear weapons. And we have taken the Libyan programs and removed them to the United States. The Libyan nuclear weapons program is now in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And that is about as significant an impact of the invasion of Iraq as the fall of Saddam Hussein himself. Yeah.
Good wish all here. I don't want to undermine the great success that it was catching Saddam Hussein, but do you feel that it's being used to rationalize all the other failures of the war? Yeah, we don't have democracy, but we got Saddam. They're still fighting, yeah, but we got Saddam. You know, there's all kinds of economic problems in Iraq, yeah, but we got Saddam. Do you think it's being used too much by the administration to rationalize all the other failures of the war thus far?
Well, I don't. Let me start with the economic side, which I don't think has been a failure. The Iraq that we took over was an Iraq that essentially did not have a functioning economy. The oil for food program was systematically used by Saddam Hussein to strengthen Ba'ath Party control throughout the country. Because there wasn't much of a functioning economy, Iraqis depended for food, for basic, all of the basic human needs really, on distribution by the government. Iraq exported oil, earned money, and bought these necessities and bought a lot of other things, and apparently paid a lot of people off with this oil revenue. But the status of the economy was that there wasn't much of a functioning economy. So that, and the effect of Saddam's allocation of Iraq's capital was almost entirely to benefit Sunni regions of the country to the total exclusion of the Shia regions. So, for example, when we and the British were trying to restore services in Basra after the Iraqi military had retreated, been expelled from there, we found that there was only the most primitive water purification system, and that there had been systematic underinvestment in water filtration, sewage treatment, all of these basic things in Basra. So there were early reports that that very low percentages of the southern part of Iraq had clean water, and that's true. And it was the same percentage before the war and after the war, because they didn't have clean water before the war either. So there's a substantial amount of work that has to be done to recreate an economy and to provide basic services that we take for granted. Something that systematically over decades Saddam and the Ba'ath Party did not do. And that means there's a lot of work to do. There's simply no doubt about it. Have there been difficulties in establishing the basis to create institutions of representative government? Of course, because there's no history of it in Iraq. We're proposing to do something fundamentally new and different. Now, I don't have any doubt the Iraqi people are capable of it. I don't think somehow the Iraqis are less able than anybody else to engage in democratic politics. But I think that there's a lot that they still need to do. It's not going to be a process that occurs overnight. They have to learn, among other things, that politics is not a winner-take-all proposition, that if you lose a political battle, your fate may be death. And that's one reason why in the Sunni areas I think there's a level of desperation, because they know what democratic elections will mean in Iraq. Sunnis are 20% of the population. They've enjoyed, because of Saddam's dictatorship, disproportionate benefits on the economic and political side. They're not going to be benefited disproportionately in the future. That's appropriate. It's not appropriate to have to take revenge on them as a group or anything like that. And I think that's going to be another problem to work through. But if you don't have a tradition of give and take, of winning some and losing some and going on to fight a political battle again, it's no wonder you're concerned that Saddam, who benefited you, might be replaced by some Shiite who will benefit them to your detriment, just as the Sunnis for decades discriminated against the Shiites. But I think we're pursuing the right course. It's important that we do it. It's important to allow the Iraqi people to have a chance. People say, well, there's turmoil in the country now. There wasn't turmoil when Saddam was in power. That's true. That's what Benjamin Franklin called the calm of despotism. And if you think that's better to a chance for freedom, well, that's your opinion. Maybe not yours personally. I don't share that opinion. I think the Iraqis should be given a chance. That's what we're trying to do.